So this is the title of the lab, Misconfig Matrix. Let's start with a quick icebreaker. We'll start off with the word soup that all of us face in our day-to-day jobs. So we can go around the room. If anyone knows the abbreviations, they can just like shout it out. ZTNA. Anyone? CSPM. CIEM. RASP, CNAP. So what we wanted to basically tell from this slide is that, in the cloud world, every day new tools keep coming up, and it becomes like really hard for product security engineers and cloud engineers to keep up. So that led us to the problem statement. As security engineers, we always see that we have limited resources and budgets. We also have to tailor the cloud security model that we're trying to run in our organization based on the size and maturity. With new compliance and regulations and also different threat landscapes, it's becoming really hard to keep up with multi-cloud deployments and infrastructure. So this is our problem statement for the lab. What we did is deployed 3 different cloud environments with vulnerable resources. We have AWS, GCP, and Azure, and we'll kind of showcase that to you in the next slide. So yeah, please have a slide. This is our agenda for the workshop. We'll walk you through the different cloud setups. We'll have Ritwik do a deep dive into the open source CSPM tools available. Then we'll try to automate the deployments, and we'll compare the results in something called as a Pugh Matrix. It's a decision-making process that a lot of companies use to decide between the different clouds, and we'll go for questions at the end. So coming to the next slide, if you folks want to just like take a picture of the different links here, we'll be using all of them throughout the lab.
We can paste in the Zoom chat.
Yeah.
Joining the Zoom chat.
So the first link takes you to the executive summary of what we have deployed on all the 3 cloud environments. I think once you like work in security, the CISOs in different organizations, they don't really have time to listen and go dig deep in detail. So as a junior analyst or a security engineer, we got to create these reports where in one-page document we try to summarize what we have done. So we followed the similar style. We have 3 cloud platforms with 90 plus vulnerabilities that are intentionally misconfigured that we'll be using in today's lab. We also have the breakdown here. So for AWS, you can see that we have broken it down by the risk. We have critical risk and high risk. Then if we come to the Azure world, it's going to be the same. We also have the GCP world of things. So I won't go in depth with all of this because our CSPM tools will be helping us throughout the process. But that link is available for reference. Then coming to the next link, we'll be using the access keys. So if you folks could like download these access keys onto your local machine, that would be great. And the third link takes you to a GitHub repository, which we have made public. If you folks could clone that GitHub repository that has the output of each tool, and it also has the instructions on how to run each tool. So folks with no laptops, they can maybe like go to this repository. There's a index.html file for some of the tools. So if you like just download that and open it in your web browser, folks can follow along. So just by show of hands, everybody got access to these three links. All good. If anyone wants to take a picture, that should be good as well. Perfect. We can.
Don't worry about the access keys. There's nothing sensitive in just for this lab. So
Yeah, please don't share it with anyone else.
yes, the first of all, you start with much.
It's just read-only access what we have given. So yeah, I'll hand it off to Ritvik now for the tooling side of things.
So let me start with the access keys that we have shared. Typically, whenever you run these tools, so I mean, if you're suppose an AppSec engineer, you probably have pen testers. If you are a pen tester, you would probably run account configuration scans. So if you are like you might be aware of these tools already, and you don't give them permissions beyond read access or whatever they need. So there's another in AWS. If you're familiar, there's a read access role and there's a security audit role, which helps you, which gives sufficient permission to these tools to identify all the resources or misconfigurations, whatever they need. So let me start by going to the Scout suite. For those who don't have laptops, we have outputs from these labs on those tools, so you can we can visualize those as well. Okay. And is anyone actually like trying the labs, cloning the labs and running them?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't have my laptop. Even in the is slabs available for play or today?
So the infrastructure won't be up for long, but the output from the tools will be uploaded to GitHub. So the output that we'll be getting from these tools, you can see them on their respective folders. Yeah. Yeah. Just curious. Is anyone following the GitHub repo? So let me one second. These controls. If you see, there is a test.sh file in each of the tools. So it's basically one thing, like we have configured this bash file typically for Ubuntu, but it should work fine in a WSL if you have it. And it might there might be some small like installation errors or dependencies which can be easily figured out. So it's like the script is supposed to help you run everything in one command. It will first, like it will also make sure if tools are not installed, it will try to install those tools and then run the script again. So we see Scott Suite not installed. And if you have any questions, Haripranav should be there to help you with the installation. Just curious, like if any one of you actually used these tools before, like we are starting with Scout Suites. Is anyone aware of Scout Suite? Okay, so it's like an open source tool by a group called NCC. It's very easy. It makes the work very easy for you to, it's to run, and it has like a lot of flexibility and different flags that you can provide. You can just set up a AWS profile with the permissions, a particular, like you can have a long-term user, IAM user, or a role with the security audit role or read user only role, and just pass this profile to Scout Suite. What it will do is it will just it has some checks inbuilt in it, and it will basically just map those resources with the checks, and it will give you an HTML file in the end. You can also have it in a JSON output. And what typically, if you are a pen tester, what the client would be looking for is that HTML file, so they can know like what's the issue in their environment, and then they can fix it. So it's just like one-stop solution for you. Yeah. I able to install the.
Yeah.
Okay. not bore you much. I'll just show you what the output looks like if you once again. Installing Wi-Fi is pretty slow. Can you have it down your system? This HTML file. I'll just try to open it now.
Okay.
Let's, in the meantime, what I will say is, let's discuss another tool. So next tool that I would like to discuss, will keep the Scout Suite running. It should be installing and it should be running just a little bit slow on the Wi-Fi. So the Scout, there's another tool, next tool we'd like to discuss is Prowler. So Prowler, it's a really, I'd say like, these are like tools which are like comparing to each other and each. So what we are doing in this lab is trying to compare on how each tool comes in parallel to the other tool. Prowler, it helps you get the compliance information as well. Suppose like when you say you have to be PCI DSS compliant, so what it means is there are some requirements that you have to follow in your infrastructure. Like your EC2 should have certain configurations for it to be PCI compliant, or your S3 bucket should have specific configurations for it to be PCI compliant. So how do you know that? So these tools make that work very easy for you. So you just run these tools and it will give you information. You have a question?
Yeah.
No, it's a CLI tool, so it can have its own binary and you can just run it. So there are different ways to run this. So you can probably run it in a Docker environment. You can run it as like you can install it using pip and just run the binary. So yeah, and Prowler, it gives you a list of in the end, it will give you how much percentage your environment was compatible with a certain kind of compliance. So you can see that information. So let me just go into the Prowler. Let's try with AWS Scan. So you could see like we pass a certain profile, AWS profile, it identifies the account, it gets the AN, and then it will, so you can see like there are 568 checks being run on Prowler. So it's like predefined checks that they have, and it will run on your infra. And so that's what we are doing. So the credential keys that we have passed, they need to be there so they can access the infra that we have set up. So you need to, and if you're downloading them, just make sure they are in the home directory of that. So it should be in the home directory, not in individual. So all the tools are accessing those files from the home directory. So their scripts are configured to pick them from the home directory. Is anyone following the labs with me or? Okay. So each tool we have tried to provide the README as well, defining what you're supposed to do and how to, if you plan to run it on your own infra. So if you want to, each cloud will have their own set of in the way the tool authenticates to those clouds. For AWS, you have those. You might have heard about AWS profiles that we have. So in .aws, you have a credentials file, your configure file. So when you do AWS configure in your CLI, what it does is it configures those credentials in the .aws file. So if you do AWS configure, it will ask you for access key ID, secret access key, region, and default. So you can set up a profile. Each profile will have different threads, and for these tools, you can use those profiles. So if you do AWS configure, and then you can just put the values that we just shared. So it will configure your default profile to use that infra. So if you're using a custom profile, you need to make sure whenever you are using AWS, you need to pass the profile flag to accept that particular profile. Just let me see if this. So this is the output we get from Prowler. Let me open. So you could see different things on this. We have the account information that was scanned, and we have list of number of total findings like 1013. I mean, anyone would be scared if they see these many findings. Also, I would like to point out like the capacity of each infrastructure to ingest a certain type of issue in your like the I would say capacity of each company or each service is different. So some companies, some of the findings might be high severity, and uh, it's not like a guarantee like that would be the similar severity finding for the other company as well. So that is something that you need to configure in your own, like when you're setting up your, probably when you work with a pen tester, you need to make sure like you relay that information with you and you calibrate that severity of the finding. So let me focus on something that is red, probably this one. So this failed. This was a scan on the KMS service. Let me zoom in. The region was US West 2, KMS key public not accessible. You could see like check expose KMS keys. So probably it says like the keys are publicly accessible, and it does provide you some more information on what it was actually looking for. And it has a link to that particular cloud infrastructure blog or document that you can follow. So you can like, it's the basic, like the HTML file does gives you a lot of like flexibility to go over the, like you can rate them based on the severity, and I would say, let me one second. So one good thing about these tools is they let you allow the output format that you want to use. Like it gives you JSON file, you can use the HTML file. So you can probably build another tool on top of this. You can, so the output of these will be standard outputs that you can set. So you can have some filters on your tool, which says like, okay, if you have this kind of findings, it should be treated as a high. And then you can have another pipeline built on top of this. And you can keep on running these tools continuously, like because your infra is changing, like your infra is always changing, right? So this is the output that we get from the AWS scan. Yeah. So for this lab, we are not focusing on the paid tools. We are mainly focused on the open source tools.
Yeah, so every cloud platform has its own services that you can use. For example, AWS, you use AWS Config that does the check continuously. Whereas these tools are like a one-time run. So depending on the compliance that your organization has, you could like prioritize running those tools differently.
Most of these tools are found in the page, but in the community page tools, so most of them can be found on the page. But here you get more customization. So if your company has some rule set that you want to consider that specific or you can easily do that, like tools like
So probably we'll go to the next tool, which I find a little interesting, is Cloud Custodian. So how Cloud Custodian works is, let me. In this, you actually have to set up some YAML files. In the YAML files, you define what you're looking for in your infra. So if I am actually, let me cat the AWS policy. So the YAML file would look like, if you want to look for S3 buckets, which are, which have read or write access prohibited or which have enabled. So you put that filters in a YAML file. Cloud Custodian will scan your infra based on that YAML file, and it will then output those results in a separate folder in JSON format. So it will give out all the resources that are, satisfying these conditions, whatever filters you have put. So I would say like one challenge in this is like you should know that what you're looking for. Probably for other tools like Prowler and Scout Suite, they have list of checks, so they know what they have already, and they'll run those checks based on your resources. But for Cloud Custodian, if you have like used a tool called Nuclei or something, so you have to give a YAML file which is like a rule set, and then it will filter out based on that. So you might need to have a big YAML file if you're looking for a lot of the like stuff in your so this is like I would say like probably one not a good feature that you might be looking for, but there could be a use case if you're just looking for a small thing in your entire infra and you don't want to go into the console. Probably it's not always a good idea to access your AWS like in cloud infra using through console, right? It's always preferred through CLI, and you can actually filter out resources in your cloud infrastructure using these tools. So we have for this one, so we have some certain conditions like anyone can get like principal staffs, anyone with a valid access, like accounts can actually get the data or they can put object. So S3 star is allowing all the actions, and then we figure out the resources which actually compliant to these conditions. So it will output those resources, and then you can. So it's I would say like it's always good to probably build on top of these tools. Change the output format. Like if you want a JSON, just then query that JSON file, identify those resources, and then probably isolate those resources if you feel like they were misconfigured pretty badly and they are not compliant with whatever you're looking for. So you can isolate them and then probably do some more incident analysis on how did that happen actually. So if I run to Cloud Custodian, also in the scripts we have tried to use the like virtual environment so it does not interfere with your other environments. It's almost done 91%. So if we run Scout Suite on AWS, it will do the authentication, it will pick the keys, and then you can see it is fetching resources. First, it fetch the resources technically and then apply those checks. I'll say like they are pretty optimized in the way they are working, and it will, it's very easy to scale these tools with your different accounts. So it's like scanning your entire infra, and it doesn't take too long to actually run these tools after you have done the installation. So yeah, so we have the output from Prowler. I would probably focus on the compliance part. If you see, we have different compliance it's frameworks that it's checking with. So if we go down, you could see like there are different CINs benchmarks that it was compared to, and you have like 69% fail, 30% resources which are passing this. So I would say this is pretty good information if your leadership is asking for if your infrastructure is actually compliant to PCI, you have that information. And it's like it's 100% accurate because these are like simple checks built into these tools, and they just make sure they just cross check whatever condition is in your resource configuration. So and it has HIPAA as well. It has ISO checks. It does a lot of compliance checks. So it's pretty useful information to have. Yeah. There's another tool which so we get this file from Scout Suite. It's you can see the different services which were scanned, resources, and the findings segregated properly. If I were to pick EC2, I can see security groups open for all, and it does provide information about like each region. So it's also possible to just focus your scan based on a particular region. There's a flag possible, and you can just pass that in these tools. Right now we have I think we're scanning all the regions, but if you want US East 1 or so, you can do that in this tool as well. So, and like on the questions of the paid tools, I think they do give you flexibility, but I think you have more power on these tools on what they're scanning for. And, you can still, I would say like you can build on top of these tools. So based on what your requirements are. So if I were to run, suppose a GCP, let's say like we run a Azure scan. Okay, sorry. Oh shit, this changed. Oh, this is the old file. Anyone actually try to run these tools on their laptop? Did it work? Okay. Okay, so yeah, we did try to make it short, but I think it's one-time installation work that you have to do, but it should be fairly quick. So we are running the cloud custodian tool, again, the Azure environment that we have set up, and you can see the checks, it's scanning those policies, and it in the output, if we exit, you could see we have a separate folder created for Azure output. So these are like all the different policies that we were checking for, and it's possible like you don't have any resources that actually like compliant to those filters that you have put. So it might give you, so the resources, you should see them in the resource .json file, like what resource was actually it was satisfying those filters that you have put. So I would say it's not that user friendly in terms of interface, the output that you get. It's a JSON file. So that's why I'm telling, like, you can just have a pipeline which picks the values from the JSON file and then do some action on your infra. So yeah. Sure. Yeah. So there's probably another tool, probably the last one that we want to discuss is called Cartographer. So interesting thing about Cartographer is it uses a database called Neo4j, which is pretty, like I'd say, like pretty intuitive in terms of what it does. So it gives you good visualization. In terms, it's like a graph that it creates for your resources, so you can connect those dots using those graphs. It typically best way to run it is using Docker Compose. So the script that we have provided tries to do that. So this is
then you also remove and when I say this, what I mean is
sorry.
But suddenly now login yes, it's a kind of a because suddenly the login is shifted from the other location. That's why that's the very condition. We're going to create this as a region for whatever that we are considering. So this is mainly what we say as region.
I want to show you the output that we get from Cartographer tool. This is Cartographer. Yeah. So it's a Neo4j database. It's by Meta. So it's, it's like SQL. You have to put some commands on what you're looking for. And we have something. We have provided those example scripts that you can run on the GitHub repo. This is Cloud Mapper.
But then only is he going to let you can connect to server. So you're going to first verify the condition. If it is there, or if there is any certain decision that it has to be taken or I will change
this AWS.
Then only you will be able to
Look for Google Cloud Cartographer commands now. So we ran the Cartographer tool on Google Cloud. I just want to show you it. You could see it runs as a Docker container. Also, I'd say like few things that you can keep in mind while running these tools is depending on your environment that you were planning to run, right? Sometimes Docker is pretty useful because you don't have to worry about the dependencies. Everything is already there in the Docker container. You don't have to rely on your system dependencies or anything like that. You can use virtual environment like we have tried to use for these scripts. So does not interfere with your commands like pip and all.
It's fine.
That way is
I have to run this, right? One tool that we probably didn't cover much because one of the reasons is like it's pretty old tool and not being updated frequently, but they do have it was by Duo Labs, now acquired by Cisco, but they do have a dummy, setup website that shows how it works. So this is how you're able to see your infra. Let me zoom in. If you can see, there's a link to public, and then there is a different VPCs that exist. They have a database. They have lambdas. So it might not give you what you want, but it gives you good visualization of your resources, how they're connecting with each other. So as I talked about earlier, right, it depends on what your requirements are, what is your like capacity to ingest certain type of misconfigurations in your environment. As I said, like some might not be high for you, but it might be for others. So these tools give you flexibility to modify these things. And then as I said, like you can always build on top of this. So possibly like this might be a good visualization for your own use case. So and one thing that we want to compare in this lab is how each tool is also like one factor in Pugh Matrix is how each tool is frequently updated, how is it maintained, because that's also important for your service if you're relying on these tools for your account configuration.
Now that
Okay. How you start Pugh Matrix?
then choose that running applications by us people position.
Yeah.
Similarly, you have the economic reason of more property or having their workers for companies not that ensure when there are then reason are completely that this is a common completely to the then you have the location issue.
Sounds good. So let's do a quick recap of all the tools. I know that we kind of went through all of them pretty quick. So we went through Scout Suite. We saw that, the UI is good. We went through Cloud Custodian. Then we went through Cloud Mapper. Cloud Mapper, the only disadvantage is that it's only available for AWS. So if your org has a multi-cloud setup, it's going to be difficult to use Cloud Mapper. Then we went with Cartographer. So it has its own Docker image and you need like the Neo4j database. And finally, we have Prowler. So in the open source world, we have all of these tools. In the next section, we're going to talk about how do we actually evaluate these tools. So in the GitHub link, there should be an Excel file called Pugh Matrix. I think you guys can easily download it. So this is going to be like the matrix what we use for evaluation of all the tools. So on the left column, we can get different metrics like multi-cloud support, ease of use, updation cycle, visualization quality, customization, resource efficiency, and compliance support. And on the right side, we have like weights that we can give to all these different things. So any questions on the Pugh Matrix? Has anyone seen it before? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
This is quite good, but what happens is that we don't know the city for the one to proceed by last one. But if we say
Yeah.
after create a device field for the improved solution, like just the power for the browser supports all such. But that's how we
So that's one of the factors we have considered while creating the Pugh Matrix.
So yeah, the Pugh Matrix, it's a criteria-based matrix. And from what we saw right now, we can see that, one tool has everything, but depending on how your organization works, you might have to choose different tooling. So when you have that scenario, you can use this criteria-based matrix and you can give weights to different criteria. So let me quickly switch back to the matrix. In the matrix, if you see, we have functional and we have non-functional components that we can evaluate. For example, a functional component would be visualization quality. Like let's say the CISO in your organization, if they're a visual person, you can give visualization as a weight of 10. The weights go from 1 to 10 and 1 being the most weight. Then let's say if you want to run the tool on limited resources, that would be another factor in your matrix. That would be like a functional one. Then a non-functional could be like compliance support, depending on, let's say, if your organization is if they have like multi-clouds in different countries, you may need like a GDPR in EU, but in America, you might need like CIS or a different compliance standard. So it all depends on how your organization operates, but you can use this matrix to basically evaluate it. So let's start off with the evaluation. So the first step in evaluation is you take a baseline and make the score for it 0 for all the factors. So in our case, if you see the row D, we are using Scout Suite as the baseline and everything is made 0 there. Coming to Cloud Custodian, Cloud Mapper, Cartography, and Prowler, we are comparing all of these with Scout Suite. So that's why the scores are 0 for Scout Suite. And we go through different iterations and we use different baselines in every iteration. So in the second iteration, Cloud Custodian will be used as the baseline and that score will be made 0 for Cloud Custodian. And then we come to our conclusion. So I know it's kind of confusing when you look at the metrics, but we'll walk you through one of the things that we did. So for example, let's take multi-cloud support. We know that Scout Suite, Cartography, Prowler, and Cloud Custodian, all of them have multi-cloud support, AWS, GCP, and Azure. So the score will be 0 for all of them, right? Because we're comparing it with the Scout Suite baseline. Does that make sense? Then we know that Cloud Mapper is only available for AWS. So the score for that will be -1 when we compare it with the baseline, which is Scout Suite. Then next, let's go to the ease of use. We saw that when running Prowler and Scout Suite, it was pretty simple. All we had to do was git clone of the repository and run like a pip install or like a Docker up command for them. So the score would be 0 for both of them. But we know that for cartography, it's a little bit more heavyweight and we need like a Neo4j database. So it might not be as intuitive. So that's why we gave it like a -1 score there. The same thing for Cloud Custodian. We gave it a -1 there. Then next we come to the update cycle. Whenever we look at open source tooling, we always think about how frequent is the tool updated to keep up with the new threats. So when we look at the GitHub repository, we see that anything with a greater updation cycle of 6 months is like a good tool. Like we can catch more vulnerabilities or misconfigurations using that. So with the case of Scout Suite, it's updated like within that 6-month timeline. If you look at Cloud Custodian, it performs better because it has a better updation cycle. Then if we go with Cloud Mapper, it was last updated 4 years ago. So you never know, with new AWS services, it can't keep up to it. Then we come with Cartography, it's updated within 6 months. And Prowler, it's updated within the last week. I think yesterday there was a new release. So that's another factor. Then we come to the visualization quality. Like Scout Suite and Prowler give you really good visualizations. Cloud Mapper also gives you a really good visualization. So that's how we are kind of building the metrics. And any questions so far on how this matrix is being built?
So it's like it's particular to your organization, right? So it depends on what your organization prefers, and then you can decide on the Pugh Matrix. And then based on the decision, it's all very helpful to you when you make those decisions, which tool to use, which to not, based on what your company is looking for or what you're looking for in your environment.
Yep. And once we finish all these iterations, we create like a summary table in the bottom, what you can see there. Basically, it uses a simple formula. So if I just click into the formula, you see it highlights the cells. So it's going to be cell C3, the weight of cell C3, which is the value 10, multiplied by the value of cell E3, which is going to be 0, plus the cell C8, the cell C4 with the value 8, which is going to be multiplied with the value -1 and added. So if I just like click into the formula, you can see the formula on top here, right? So for every tool that we are using, it's going to multiply the weight into the value what we put down there. And finally, we get like an output in the end over here. So if you see the output in the end, the totals, row 15, we can see that since we use Scout Suite as the baseline, the value is always going to be 0. Then when we come to the next tool, Cloud Custodian, the value is -4. So based on your organization's importance, you're getting a -4 there. Then when we come to Cloud Mapper, we get -15. Then when we go to Cartography and Prowler, it's all in the positive. So that would give you an idea that, hey, Cartography and Prowler seem to be a better open source tool compared to Scout Suite and other tools based on my organization's importance. So let's say in our organization, we have a 1 TB server where we can run the tool. So let's say our Pugh Matrix weight, we can put it to 1 because we are not concerned about the efficiency of the tool, right? So yeah, once we edit that, I think in the bottom that everything changes. Let me just give edit access for.
And it's like you can have multiple iterations for this. So in next iteration, you can make Prowler as the base. But if your conditions remain same, you can still guess it from like what the results would be for other tools, because since like it's 27 above the, like even for Scout Suite, it is 27 points ahead of Scout Suite. Other tools might not compare properly with Prowler if we have these conditions similar to what we have right now. So that's like
Even add the email ID test.
they are using it to roughly target the probably create this engine. Why it is not be? You know a little bit question on there. The activity is going to create the and things where we there is no way that
Sounds good. So let's conclude the lab. Yeah, I think we can finally discuss about the buy, build versus adopt approach. Whenever you want a custom solution, we have like pros, cons, and when do you want to use them? Then we have the commercial and open source. So I think you guys can look at the table. I just don't want to read off the slides, and we can open it for questions.
I do want to show you the output that we get from cartography tool. So once you are able to run that cartography tool, right, this it should be working on the local host. It's just how do I hide this? Yeah, 1 second. So it's just a matter of running those Neo4j commands. So this is an open database, as I told you, from Meta. So this is also querying your infrastructure using, suppose, like SQL commands. That's the ability it provides you. So and like I can just try match I dot cp instance, and it should return I dot name, I dot zone. Let me just run this. No changes. So probably what it highlights is it does not find no records from this. I'm just trying to run another command, which so it's like there's also command for like select star. Basically, it will give you information in terms of graph. So I just want to show you how it looks like. Normal cartography is so I mean, we didn't give everything in the lab. So some of the things that we want you to explore in terms of what commands you want to use. So this is the output that you typically see when you run this tool. So it's creates a node kind of thing, and then you can connect with each. Like if you have an instance and what other groups are connected to that. It's all about how you structure your query. So in terms of Pugh Matrix, you would have seen like this is some work that you have to do because you have to figure out the query and identify what you're looking for. So that affects the Pugh Matrix score. So that's what we were trying to explain in that Pugh Matrix. So yeah. So you should see something like this for your infrastructure, depending on what query you put. Yeah. Any questions on this?
Switch back to right.
Yeah.
Either you can do it or you can do
So this is the build, buy, adopt approach that Hari Pranav was discussing. So
we have two scenarios.
there are pros and cons of each tool, but I would say it's very, depending on each individual organization, that varies a lot. For me, like my organization, we tend to use Code Suite because we feel it's very useful for us and it gives us what we want. So yeah, I think that's it.
Any questions we can discuss if you guys.
And if you feel we have made the repo public. So, the script should be working fine because of the Wi-Fi. I think it took some time to install these tools, but they are pretty, robust to handle different kind of scenarios. They will install these tools. They will make a virtual environment. They will also run Docker containers for you. They tend to do everything. Yeah.